The following segment is brought to you in partnership with Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. It is a new year. That means New Year's resolutions. No, I'm not going to list off my New Year's resolutions. I already put those in my Sunday newsletter, so if you want to read them, you can go read them there. But I did an op-ed for Future 42 for our partnership that we posted over the weekend of 5 New Year's resolutions for Washington state lawmakers, because I just don't think that they're going to come up with their own, so we kind of need to come up with some for them. And I thought it would be fun today to count down the top resolutions that I believe lawmakers should take on in 2023. Number 5, put aside performative politics. I talk a lot about performative politics. Here's what I define that as. Something you do for appearances rather than actual effect. Something that is not based on need or necessity. And there are a ton of bills that get introduced every year where I'm like, do we need that? Do we need that? There's nothing saying you have to go to Olympia and pass new bills. Like, it's not a contest to see who can pass the most bills. Well, maybe it is, but it shouldn't be. And I see dumb things like House Bill 1020, which was pre-filed last month. And it is an act that would designate Susiosaurus rex as the official state dinosaur. Okay? Look, I get it. Dinos are fun. You know, they make us get in touch with our inner child, the wannabe paleontologist in all of us. But I don't understand why it has to be in a bill. And you might say, well, Brandi, it's just fun. They're probably doing it for kids, and you just put this through and pass it. No, every single bill does require effort. It requires effort and time to write, to get into committee, to move forward, to take votes on, for the governor to sign. Even a bill as surface level as this one does consume the time of lawmakers. And it is my belief that we cannot seriously commit ourselves to solving the state's most pressing crises that are actually impacting people's lives every single day, like homelessness, drug abuse, crime, unless we do away with the performative politics. That includes the dinosaur bill and any other similar bills they might come up with this legislative session. Number 4 on my list of New Year's resolutions that Washington state lawmakers should adopt this year is to make good on their election year promises. This is something that we discussed a lot in 2022. The fact that you had all of a sudden Democrats who came out and cared about crime in the lead up to the November election. And for most of us who can see through that kind of stuff, we're like, all right, let's see how long that lasts. Let's see if that lasts into the new year. I mean, Governor Jay Inslee, who never commented on police defunding, came out and said, I'm opposed to police defunding. It was like, where were you 2 years ago? Attorney General Bob Ferguson, who didn't say anything while stores were being looted in Seattle and Bellevue, came out 2 years too late and put forth a retail theft task force. And then you had certain swing district Democrats who were going to have tight races to keep their seats last year, who supported some of these misguided police reform efforts that were passed in 2021, but came out on the campaign trail and said, okay, we need to scale some of these back. One of them was State Senator Emily Randall, the Democrat from Bremerton. Well, she kept her seat. And do you think that I'm seeing a bill filed in Olympia by Emily Randall to fix the police pursuit law? Do you think I've seen a bill in Olympia filed by Emily Randall, or the majority party for that matter, to make it so that illicit drug possession can be a felony in Washington state again? No. And so I do still think there's time before the legislative session for them to make good on the promises they made on the campaign trail and prove to us that it wasn't just lip service to win an election. But I will say that I'm not going to hold my breath. Number 3 on my list of 2023 New Year's resolutions that Washington state lawmakers should adopt is prioritizing checks and balances. I've said that one of the biggest things I think needs to happen this legislative session is for lawmakers to really finally address emergency power reform. We had on the show last week Democratic Senator Mark Mullet and Republican Senator Linda Wilson, who have proposed a bipartisan bill that would put very reasonable checks and balances on this governor or a future governor's emergency power. And that is that in a time of emergency, you have more power in the legislature to be able to come together and end it if you have an executive who's abusing his authority. To me, it should be non-controversial. It should be an absolute priority. I don't see the downside to it. And hopefully now that we're officially out of the pandemic, it's something that there is the political will for the majority party to take on. Number 2 on my list of 2023 New Year's resolutions for state lawmakers is to find a way to reward good behavior. It has been a really hard 2 years for Washingtonians. I mean, everyone across the country, but also for Washingtonians. We've seen the cost of gas through the roof. We have been dealing with inflation. I mean, mothers not having medicine for their kids available at the store, not having formula available for their kids. We, of course, went through the pandemic and businesses shut down. Nowhere during that did Washington state lawmakers find a way to give Washingtonians a tax break. Not a break on the gas tax, not a little break in the sales tax. You know, you could talk about and look at things like the price of gas and say, oh, well, you know, it's out of state lawmakers' hands how high gas is. But it's not out of their hands to try to let Washingtonians keep a little bit more of their money. And I think why it's particularly prudent for them to find a way, and why I say reward good behavior, is they've already pre-filed bills that would reward bad behavior. There is a bill that has been pre-filed that would raise the pay for Washington state prison inmates. There is a bill that has been filed that would make it so that a court cannot force an inmate to help offset the cost of their incarceration, which means that the cost of their incarceration will be borne entirely by the taxpayers. To me, you're finding ways to reward criminals. And look, I get it. You want to make sure people come out of prison, they're in a good position. I support all that. But if you can find creative ways to help make criminals' lives a little bit easier, I think it's not asking too much to find some creative ways to make the lives of law-abiding Washingtonians a little bit easier. And the number 1 New Year's resolution that I would like to see Washington state lawmakers adopt is to spend more time reaching across the aisle. Of course, that's very in keeping with the theme of undivided. But I also think that we are in this incredibly toxic political climate across the nation. I mean, Congress, to me, has become borderline worthless. They are so focused on hating each other, the two parties, they can't get anything done. And I think Washington state can be a good example for the rest of the country about what bipartisanship can get you, what you can accomplish by working together. And they don't get enough credit, but the vast majority of bills in Olympia are passed on a bipartisan basis. Of course, those are the bills that are far less controversial. It's the controversial ones where you see this huge divide and that make the news, and I get that. So maybe it is contingent on us in the media to celebrate some of the bipartisan wins as well. So I'll commit myself to doing that this legislative session. But again, things are toxic enough on the national level. I really think that Washington state lawmakers can set an example and show everyone how important and how productive bipartisanship can really be. So those are my top 5 New Year's resolutions that I would like to see Washington state lawmakers adopt this year. The previous segment was brought to you in partnership with Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org.